Good morning. Our panel is about low latency. Why do we need low latency? Yesterday we discussed how to make things seem nice, how to make QoE, but the problem is that this is not enough. You want to achieve something that is broadcast-like. The picture here is stolen from Thomas Stockhammer, who's showing the difference in latencies, what happens at satellite and what happens at streaming, and you definitely don't want to have a 30-second delay or 60-second delay versus something that you see over the satellite. So this panel will try answering the question, how do we get there? Our panelists today are Tim Dougherty from Wowza, Will Lowe from Akamai, Ali Begin from Comcast, and Paul McDowell from BitMoving. So,
good morning, everybody. I am excited to be here, the first guy speaking this morning. I'm from Wowza, and I'm going to work really hard in a short period of time to show you guys how to do something that's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how to create Apple HLS using Wowza Media Systems. Well, of course. No, Wowza Streaming Engine. So, low latency encoding. Let me dive in and stay with me. Stay caffeinated. This is going to be awesome, okay? I can see some smiles out there. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Latency, we all know what it is, but let's go to the dictionary. It is the amount of time, the delay, between when a frame of video is captured and displayed. We call it glass to glass. It's when the light goes in the camera, gets processed, put through some kind of switcher or production system, encoder card, gets encoded, goes up your first mile, gets into a media server where it's probably transcoded and among other things that could happen there, and then goes out onto CDN, and the cycle continues. And I know you all know that. But I brought that out and I said that in kind of a compound way to realize that takes a ton of time in the matter of milliseconds that all of you developers are very comfortable working in. So just to look at the time it takes to stream regular video. Over on the left, you see the 45 plus, and it goes all the way down to the right, which is 1 second, or less than 1 second. Common HTTP latency. You take the standard Apple HLS specification, and it'll give you 3 10-second chunks. That takes a lot more time than delivering 2-second chunks or 1.5-second chunks. So when you open it up out of the box, you get a very simple, comfortable, highly reliable streaming experience. But we can change that. We can make it a little bit faster and get into a reduced latency capacity. That's where you're still using regular Apple HLS. You're not having to move into some more, I would say, cutting-edge technologies to establish the ultra-low latency, which will be definitely talked about on this stage shortly when I'm done. But you can get inexpensively through standard CDNs, short Apple HLS chunks, if you so choose. So, another thing I like to talk about when it comes to low latency. Do you ever notice that people on the business side always want to go after the newest cool thing? We got to have 360 VR. I got to have Ultra HD. Well, I've had people say, I got to have low latency. Sorry, I had to use the meme. But it's like they want low latency because it's cool. You know what I think? I think it's cool. But if you don't need it, don't do it. Does that make sense? All right, I had to get that out. A typical live streaming workflow, I think I'm doing okay on time. I mentioned earlier, camera, encoder, media server, CDN, ultra low latency. It's about, or a regular latency with HLS, it's about 30 seconds. Same thing fundamentally from a hardware, camera, streaming perspective, a lot of different bits on the protocol side. Ultra low latency, something like WebRTC, which by the way was interesting hearing how Twitter is using WebRTC. You can get it down into the time it takes to talk on an audio call on a cell phone. So I'm going to do a demo here in a minute. But again, just ultra low latency works really good for auctions, esports, gambling, medical. If there was some guy watching me over the internet while there was a surgeon taking instructions from him, I want that to be ultra low latency. Sports, social media, e-commerce, this is all fairly well-known information. One thing I like to talk about, at these conferences, we'll mention the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, big giant streaming company, these amazing broadcasters, cool little startups are always talking about that. I love to talk about these guys I got to know in Alberta, Canada. They have a cattle auction, okay? And this guy, he's a cowboy. And again, I'm wanting this talk to be focused on just the regular guy. We got a cowboy who was trying to get it, trying to shorten the distance. They had people driving to this auction over hundreds of miles. So a regular guy got a hold of a streaming server, figured out how to shorten the chunk lengths, and he was able to run a very simple website with 5 to 8 second latency based on conditions. So I just like to tell that story because this technology is accessible very readily. All right, here we go. This is my demo. Now I'm going to start the clock here. Keep me honest. I think it's going. Okay, I've done a lot of demos. I can do this demo live, but I couldn't do it on the presentation computer. So what you're looking at right here is Wowza Streaming Engine. That's our user interface. That's where you go in and you can modify, do whatever you need to do with the software. Now on the right here, I've got 2 folders. This is just my desktop. And when the packager starts creating the HLS chunks, you're going to see them start to show up in there, and we'll interact with it. And then on the bottom side is a log, and then I have an NDI so we can do the ultra low latency. Or excuse me, the HLS low latency. Right now you're looking at an application, and out of the box, an application does everything, Dash, HLS, RTMP, even San Jose streaming. It's very capable. And this is where you get a standard 10-second chunk, the standard specification for Apple HLS when you're setting that up. I also have this live low application, which is a separate set of settings where I can show you how we modified the properties themselves. So inside Wowza, you go to a Cupertino streaming packetizer property set. I'm going to go there in a second. I'm having a hard time breathing. Bear with me. So we've got 3 properties here, and I can't see it very well, but there's the chunk count, the max chunk count, and then the playlist size. And what we do is over on the right, you can see that there is the 10-second, 10,000 millisecond setting, and it's been changed to 2,000. So that's where we're changing those chunks to 2 seconds. And then down here we have, and I'm interacting with which property is that? I can't see the property. This is the playlist max chunk count, the number of chunks that are available for download, and then the final one is the actual playlist size. So what I'm going to do here in a minute is actually show the chunks showing up on the 2 windows I have in the upper right. So here I go. I go over to, and by the way, you can do this in a configuration file. So for those of you who would prefer to not interact with a user interface, you can definitely do it that way as well. So I'm going to jump over to my encoder. I'm going to bring it up here in just a second. And we're going to turn on the stream. So now that I've got the stream started, over here on the right-hand side, we're going to see the actual chunks come in. There we go. So this one on the left, these are actual, these are playlists, chunk lists, and then these are chunks that are coming in from the server. If someone would have showed me this years ago, I would have learned so much faster how the chunking worked. So those are the 10-second chunks that are coming in. And I open it up in VLC, and you can see that it almost goes a full 10 seconds. It's like 9 seconds or 8.5 seconds. So you can actually see the chunks being produced by the server. And then the other one, I believe, goes a full 10 seconds. So again, it's very interesting for me to see the simplicity of this. We are just watching video files back to back. And then I'm going to go over to the other folder, and you will see the chunks coming up for the low latency. So this is really cool. You can see the chunks that are moving, so they're coming in. And then I'm going to open one of them up. And you can see that they're super short chunks. They just, boom, 2 seconds. And then I opened this one up with media info, I believe, and I was getting it in 1 second and 966 milliseconds. So again, it's just a simple demo that shows you how we changed the property and we got a shorter chunk. So now I'm going to do a little bit more of an interesting thing, and this is where you actually see it. So I've got a web application. It's just 4 players running in a web page. I'm going to refresh it. And then you can see actually how the chunks are working when they come out in a player. So the box that I'm moving is real time. And so right now you can see that good old RTMP is just about 3 seconds off. This is the Wowza ultra low latency. I'm not necessarily talking about that right now, but you can see it's inside of about a second and a half. But this is down in the lower right. We had set those chunks to be 10 seconds by default. That's how they come. So in the lower right, you can see that we're about 19, 20 seconds off. So that's standard HLS. And then over on the left, you're going to see well, you already see it. You see that we're just about 9 seconds off. So that is my demo. Now, thank you so much for listening. I know it was simple. I know I was covering at a very high level. I know there's some of you here like me who need it at a simple level. So thanks so much for listening. I appreciate it.